everybody. Welcome. Hey, Leah Faston.
Carl Shannon, hello.
Welcome. It is July 1st. We are officially a day past the first half of the year.
Woo, that's bonkers.
It's bonkers. It's bonkers.
It also means we're solidly into our 2.5 years of doing the AI Salon, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, we started December 7th, 2022 was our first thing. So we are past the 2.5 year mark. I know.
That's crazy. And now we're talking about podcasts that you sort of make yourselves. Like, think about the conversations we're having and what's possible versus what was possible 2.5 years ago. Shocking.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen and get started here. So welcome, everybody. If you're new here, what's going on? There we go. It's the AI Salon. As Leah just mentioned, we started this thing a while ago, and we've been talking about, the role of AI in all of our lives and how it's evolving. The little profile that you see on screen there, that's a Midjourney mood board that if you want to make images in Midjourney that have an AI salonness about them, that's our official brand mood board. So if you use that in Midjourney, if you know how to use Midjourney, mood boards or styles, profiles, just put that in there. I'm really excited tonight. We've got Pierson Marks from Jellypod. We've talked to for a little bit, and Pierson's going to talk to us about Jellypod and what it is and all that sort of stuff. And we'll do that in the second half of the evening. But before that, let's sort of dive in. So if you don't know what the AI Salon is, we're a community of about 3,000 AI optimists who are trying to figure this stuff out together. It's an incredibly generous group of people that play first and mindfully create and generously lead. It's what we call the cycle of AI readiness. And the more I learn about AI, the more I feel like this is absolutely the right approach for education, for creating things, and for the future of work for yourself personally, but also as a community. The generously lead part is about learning out loud, and sort of taking the stuff that you learn when you play, and then you try to build some stuff and you learn, here's what works, here's what doesn't. I'm sure Pierson's going to talk to us about all the things they're running into about what works, what doesn't, and what they have to reinvent. And being in community and sharing those learnings is one of the reasons why I think the AI Salon is so powerful. Leah, what are your thoughts on who we are and what's going on? Where's your head these days?
My head these days has been thinking a lot about our mastermind and about how we can be more involved as a community with each other and showing up for each other. And I think AI is great, but to me, it still comes back to the human involved with the AI and how our human voice is being brought into the AI creation process and the connections we're making in the human connections. And that's still fundamental to what I believe in. I feel like AI has been a great excuse for us to build this community, but I like the community aspect of it. It's the human piece. And I think as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives, I think the AI that really is exciting for me and really works is the AI that helps us be more human and helps us find our own human voice in an even more authentic way. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and one of the things that we talk about a lot in the salon. So we've got someone mute Bob there. I think he's got an echo. One of the things we talk a lot about within the salon are our values, how we show up for each other. So if you'd be so kind, Leah, can you walk us through, who we are, show up?
Yep. Okay. So our first value is curiosity. We are eager to ask the obvious questions, learn new things, and experiment. Our relentless quest for adventure and exploration ignites our inner spark, transforming our curiosity into unexpected discoveries and newfound passions. Our next one is playfulness. We value creativity, joy, and the freedom to experiment. We play first and transform learning into a captivating journey. We collaborate and mindfully create together when we can to learn more, make friends, and develop new circles of trust. Remember, all work and no play is how we did things before the salon.
Yeah, this one feels increasingly important to me. I feel like AI is getting so significant now. Everyone's talking about it and, pissed off at it and, all that sort of stuff. And I feel like, finding the joy within, learning about it, it feels increasingly important because it's some pretty intense stuff.
And for me, it's where I always come back to, right? It's when sometimes I feel like I get a little overloaded with all the AI information, all the AI creating, all the AI everything. And where I always come back to is just playing, like hopping on Midjourney or, trying a new tool and just playing and see what I can make. And that joy, I think, is what keeps me coming back. Everything else is like, okay, maybe I'll launch something, maybe I'll build something, maybe photography will turn into something else. But like at the end of the day, it's still playing with a tool and seeing what we can make creatively. So yeah, I agree. Empathy. We are respectful, inclusive, and kind. We value diverse perspectives, recognizing that our differences make us stronger. We accept that people might be afraid and angry, and we work to understand them. We actively practice gratitude and acknowledge the efforts and successes of those around us. Humans matter. Bravery. We have the courage to step into the unknown, taking bold actions in the face of fear and challenging ourselves to push the boundaries of what we thought possible. Let's face it, with everything changing as fast as it is, we're all making this up as we go along. We might as well be brave about it. And generosity. We're willing to share our resources, feedback, and wisdom with others and support each other's growth and development. There's so much happening and so much to learn, we can't possibly keep up with it all. Understand that even if something is obvious to you, it may be a profound revelation to someone else. Learn out loud, share what you know, and generously lead.
Yep, that's it. And so the site that you're looking at here, if you haven't been at it, is the AI Salon community. And to navigate it, on the left-hand side here are all the different, what are called spaces. So the first 7 here are kind of the little welcome area. If you haven't introduced yourself to the community yet, I would encourage you to do that. Go in and introduce yourself. Say hi, say who you are. You can check out past meetings. You can find out about next meetings. You can also learn about the mastermind, which Leah just talked about a bit before. We'll talk about that in a second. There's also a community corner. There's a news area. And then there's all of these mastermind clubs and hubs. And so for anyone who is a club leader that's on the call right now, feel free to just raise your hand and tell people about what your club is and why they should join it and why they should be excited about it. And then we'll come back and talk about the mastermind. Vicky Baptiste.
I have nothing to say, but I didn't like to leave an empty gap. But I am a co-leader of the ethics group with Joy Purdy, and we have some great conversations going on. If you're interested in ethics or bias in AI, we would love to see you in the AI Ethics Club.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I'll go. We started the Midjourney Jam last week, and we are we're cruising. We're 2 to 3 times a week, half-hour little nibbles of creativity around one tool in Midjourney, and then we jam and play with it and make cool stuff. The jams are, anyone can drop in. You don't need to be part of the mastermind. If you want to be involved deeper, sharing work, having conversations, you can join us in the mastermind group that we're part of.
Terrific.
And keep your eye on the events. They 3 times a week, generally Tuesday, Thursdays, and on the weekend, but they move around depending on my production schedule and my life. So keep an eye on Sundays. That will be posted for the following week.
Yeah. And if you haven't taken advantage of that, one of the things Leah is really good at is, getting people to think deeply about their intent with what they create. And it's not just about the tool. It's about, as you said, the humanness, right? How we use it.
How do we make work that is in our voice with the tools that we have?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
It's a whole therapy session.
That's what art is, though. I mean, if you want to do art the right way, art therapy, it's all messy.
Exactly.
If you can cry, that's the best.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Claire.
We have a lot of fun.
Speaking of crying in the Midjourney Jam this morning,
There's no crying in AI.
There was definite crying in AI this morning. It was a wonderful exercise, and I ended up with a great song that gave me insights about myself that I didn't even have until this morning. So thank you, Leah. That was great.
Well, thank you for showing up.
I raised my hand because I didn't want Brandon to freak out and think that I wasn't going to tell everybody about the AI life hacks with Brandon and Claire. We meet the Wednesday evenings that come after the Tuesday AI Salon. So that means tomorrow, Wednesday evening at 5:30 Mountain Time, we will meet. It's a really fun, entertaining, interesting group. We talk about all sorts of hacks, things that you can use AI for that maybe hadn't occurred to you, like, I don't know, start your morning to make you cry. It is a place to ask questions. If you've got, like, what can I do to make getting my kids lunches more effortless? Well, we'll come up with 8 ways that AI can help you with that. If you have some cool AI hacks that you've come across in your day-to-day life, bring them in, share them, because we all need them. So come, it's part of the mastermind group of clubs.
Tomorrow night at what time?
At 5:30 Mountain Time tomorrow on Wednesday.
Okay, great. Awesome.
All right. Thank you all.
Gwen.
Hey there. So I'm in AI for Business with Kelly, Cece, and myself, and I'm going to give you a little teaser for what we talked about in our last meeting. So we meet every other Thursday. So July 10th will be our next meeting at 4:30 Pacific time. We were talking about jobs and how AI is affecting jobs. And the teaser is, we talked about automated pizza. We talked about rethinking hires, AI tool evaluators, and AI barriers. So that gives you a little tease as to what our discussion was. And I'm sure we're going to be continuing that. Keep looking at our posts for upcoming topics.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And there's Kelly Camp, speak of the devil. Thank you, Gwen. Terrific. All right. Anybody have anything else? Any other club leaders? All right. Let me jump over and talk quickly about the AI Mastermind. So if you are in the AI Salon community, down the left-hand side, you'll notice that there is the Mastermind Circle, and there's clubs and hubs. Any space that you see that has a little crown beside it is part of the Mastermind. So those are Mastermind spaces. The Mastermind is a subscription area that is incredibly affordable, and the low pricing, the founding pricing, is for all of 2025. This is a more focused community. You have private member access to content libraries and the Mastery Workshop and clubs and hubs. Things like Leah's Midjourney thing that's live every day. The recordings of those are stored, and conversations about those happen within the Mastermind. You get early access to new events, features, and initiatives. And because this is an early initiative for the salon, if you join the Mastermind, essentially now, you get to help shape what this thing becomes over time. But the basic idea is this is a space within the salon for people that really want to step up their game and support one another and work together and learn together and really take things to the next level. Leah, what are your thoughts on the Mastermind?
I mean, for me, I think it's just an opportunity for us to, our salon is fantastic. We've been doing it for 2.5 years. And I think you and I and many of us here have much bigger ideas for our salon than where we're at. And so I think the Mastermind is just an opportunity to show up and make that happen.
Yep.
And you get to hang out with us every Friday. We're there.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. We have founder hangout on Fridays.
Founder hangout on Fridays. And really make this your community, right? I think that as communities are becoming, I was thinking about the mastermind recently around AI. I've noticed that in a lot of the places that I frequent, AI generated content is becoming much more prevalent, right? So LinkedIn, Instagram, videos on TikTok now, like I'm having a really hard time discerning between what's AI generated content and what is not.
Yep.
And I'm having a hard time it's doing a weird thing to my mind around what's real, what's not real, what's reality, what's not reality. And so I'm finding myself coming to the salon and to our mastermind almost as a respite. Like I know everything I know everyone who's posting. I know everyone who's creating that content.
Yeah. There's a deeper relationship there
that's right.
And I even notice in our founder hangouts that there's just the nature of how people are engaging is just much deeper. They trust who's there because they know them, right? And that's the whole point.
And I really want, like, as the world becomes more and more AI generated, I want a place I can come, but I still get all that connection from my community. And I know who's posting stuff. And we're such a brilliant group here. People have so much experience that they're bringing to the salon, coming from all these different backgrounds. It's so cool to see what people are posting. And so that's what to me is the mastermind is that a trusted place where we can connect.
Yeah, beautiful. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I am going to bring up one Ann Murphy. Ann,
Woo-hoo!
you ready to hop up here and talk about our stuff?
Not at all.
Perfect. Then let's do it.
All right.
So, so hang on. Let me flip over to. I have a slide for you.
Oh, thank God.
Right?
I hope it tells me what I'm going to talk about.
No, it doesn't.
Well,
But
listen, but wait, whoa. Before you transition to that, I have to say something about the mastermind.
yes.
So for folks who may think it's like not that big of a deal, whether you join now or whether you join later, as a community organizer with founding members and then like not founding members, I can just tell you that the founding members get all the goodies. Yep. They get all the discounts. They get all the access. They get, like, every time there's a gift, a contest, anything, it's always the founding members get it first. Like, it really does matter when it really like is well received when you step up when a community is doing something new and you're there and you're down for the adventure. They're always going to take care of you. And I know these guys are like that too. So if you're like, I don't know, maybe I'll join in 2026, like, no, step up now, be part of the adventure, and like you'll always be one of the founding members, and that just matters. It makes a difference.
Yeah, and you get to define what it is, right? So that's awesome.
Okay.
Beautiful. So let me tee this up, and then I'll have you talk about this, Ann. But about 6 months ago, Ann and I put on a thing called AI Festivus, AI for the rest of us, where we had 34 of our favorite people come and speak over a 24-hour period. And it was a really remarkable 24 hours. And there were a lot of requests of, could we turn this into a training? And so that training is officially, as of today, available. So Ann, talk to us about it, and Vicky's contribution and all that sort of stuff. Let's get the people up to speed on what this is.
Well, congratulations, Vicky and Kyle. This is incredible. Thank you so much, both of you, but in particular, Vicky, for your mastery of vast amounts of information and how to take 34 hours of 34 speakers, 24 sessions, make it all make sense, organize it into modules, create quizzes so that people can actually check for understanding as they go. So this is fantastic news. Of course, Kyle and I thought it would just take like a couple of weeks. We'll just wave our hands and
we just put it in AI.
all of a sudden we would have this thing. But what the beautiful part about it is that we have been able to take our time, and we have been able to iterate and refine. not just like what the rest of the world is going to see. Of course, that's incredibly important, but also how the three of us are building something sustainable that works for us for the long haul and that allows us to continue serving our audiences and our community as a threesome. So that's been really cool. So now it's available for people to buy, and they go to areyoureadyforai.com, cleverly written out. So make a mental note, or make a note on pen and paper, or put it into your browser now. areyoureadyforai.com is where you can go to purchase the program. And Kyle and I we have the AI Readiness Project podcast, where we talk about kind of like, you get like little snippets of the kind of thought leaders who were in at AI Festivus, who are in the training program. So it's kind of like a nice ongoing conversation that you have with the program as a member of the community.
Yeah, and the other thing that I'll say is that one of the things that struck me when we did AI Festivus, and it's kind of what led to this, is to a person, not a single person during AI Festivus, we just said, hey, come talk about whatever you want to talk about to 34 of our closest friends, and they all said yes. And to a person, no one led with talking about tools, right? Here's a tool that I use. Everyone talked about, here's how I'm thinking about AI. Here's how I'm trying to solve it. Here's what I'm doing. So we were very conscious when we put this program together, not to have it be tool centric at all, because the tools are changing so much that you really, you know, what you learn today is going to be irrelevant 6 months from now. And so we wanted this program to teach kind of the fundamentals of how to be successful with AI, no matter what the tools are. And so that's the thing I'm most excited about, is this is a program that I think over time is going to have, you know, legs and going to be relevant for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Wait, you didn't tell me we were adding legs.
That's great. All right. Thank you, Ann Murphy.
Can I
Thanks for
jump
having
in
me.
for
Thanks,
one
everybody.
second? I'd like
Yes.
to put a link to the website you just named into the chat.
Yes. Are
you ready for AI.com? Does not send me to what you guys launched.
And can I also say, while you're doing that, is that I did.
Oh, there you go. Are you ready for AI.com? Fabulous. Okay.
I did tell Kyle we were 99.9% ready. So I have literally just this second taken the Sandbox account off the Stripe. So you can't actually pay without a test account now.
The site looks amazing.
This is the building in public that we do to make it safe for everybody else to do it. We just, you know, intentionally fumble around in front of you. It's just, it's a shtick.
Play first. It's the play first.
That's it. It is.
It's play
Good.
first.
That's right. That's right.
But
Right.
huge shout out to both of you guys and for everybody for their patience while we put this together. It has been a labor of love, and I'm so excited that it's out in the world.
Yeah, me too.
And as someone who's watched you build this, I attest to the fact that it's been a labor of love, and I too am witnessing something out in the world that has been a lot of work and effort has gone into this, and the world is very lucky that it's available to take advantage of.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's
So
one of the best things about the salon is watching just like ideas pop up and then get turned into something.
mhm.
And that is so cool.
People
I
partner
remember
up,
even
people starting businesses. Yep.
I mean, even
Yep.
with the AI Festivus, like it just like you guys pulled this amazing 2 days together of speakers, and that was playful, right? I want to learn more. I'm
Very.
excited about this. Let's play and see what happens. And now there's an AI readiness training that came out of it. It's so cool to watch. It's very AI Salon. Very like, yeah.
And my secret is launch first, figure it out second.
Yeah, everyone around
Well,
us
and
loves
luckily there are
that.
people like Vicky with the kind of mind
Exactly.
that helps that happen. Yes.
Yeah. There are people around us that clean up after Ann and I.
Which is really
slow down.
So,
all right.
So one of the things I wanted to share with you, Leah. So before we get on, we generally have a little check-in. How are you doing with AI? How are you doing? You said to me, you're like, I'm kind of I'm like, checked out with this. Like, where are you? And then I'll tell you, I'm actually in a good place with it, and I'll tell you that. But tell me where you are with it, and like, what's going on with that?
Oh, I am doing what I do in the technical, and the world gets like overwhelming and confusing, and I go into my little tiny corner of creating, and I just start creating things. I'm a photographer, right? I spend most of my time behind a camera lighting things and making them happen, and I feel like that's also my role with AI. I feel like I'm still really interested in the creative act and what makes incredible work, and when we use tools to make work that is even more human and even more interesting. And I feel like often in the AI world, that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about moving people out of the experience. What can we do without people? Look at what the AI can do. We don't need people to do this anymore. And it feels very boring, and it feels very uninteresting to me. And so I find myself looking for little nooks and crannies in generative AI where people are doing truly remarkable work. That it's remarkable work because there's people doing it, not because an AI is doing it. And so that's where I'm at today.
That's cool.
Yeah.
No, I like it. I think it's really powerful. So I want to share something that I started stumbling into last night on the AI Learning Lab Live. And I want to share a new framework with you, which I'm actually really excited about, but it's very not thought out. But for me,
that's shocking.
I know. Exactly. Launch first, figure it out second.
Yeah, right.
For me, I am increasingly convinced and excited about the fact that as significant as AI is, it's not about AI. It's not about the tools, right? The book I'm working on right now, Feed Your Prompt, is about AI is not the genius, you are. AI is an amplifier, and if you put you into the prompt, it amplifies your ideas, right? I'm really excited about that. I think about the salon, and we came up with this cycle of AI readiness. It used to be the cycle of AI literacy, which meant learn the tools, right? If you're literate, you learn the tools. And now we're talking about AI readiness, and step 1 is play first, and step 2 is build some shit, and step 3 is talk about it, learn out loud. The more I learn, the more right that feels, because it's about people. And so last night on my live, one of the things where I have been struggling is how do we talk about tools, AI tools? How do we categorize them? How do we say, hey, here's the tools you should learn? Because they're getting too complicated. ChatGPT is not a single tool anymore. It's about 14 tools. Pierson's going to be talking about Jellypod. It's some combination of 7 or 8 or 10, who knows how many tools that are strung together. Someone will say to you, hey, how did they make those Bigfoot videos that I'm seeing everywhere? What tool was used for that? Well, I don't know. ChatGPT for the script, 11 Labs for the voice, like there's some combination of them there. So it's really hard to talk about the tools. And so I put into Gemini Deep Research this dilemma. I said, I don't know how to categorize shit anymore. How do we recommend tools? How do we talk about tools? It came up with, it took about 20 minutes and researched like 400 websites, which was pretty cool. Hang on, my machine is going slow. There we go. So the way in the AI Mastermind, we've got a list of recommended tools, and that list is a static list grouped by function. So here's image tools, here's video tools, here's large language models, right? Here's all the different kinds of tools. And it's about, if you want to make videos, you go use these. Well, that's not working anymore. So what the research came up with was what it called a jobs to be done framework. And what it kind of looks like is this: rather than think about the tools, start with the output. So if you've got that Bigfoot thing, right, where you're seeing them all over the place, you start with that output, and then you sort of reverse engineer, well, what were the steps that it took to build that thing? And what were the tools that you used along the way? And what struck me is not only can you put in that workflow, here's the tools that I used, what you can also put in that workflow is, here's my human contribution to it. Here's, in this step, when it came to visualize this part of the image, I made 100 different images before I chose this one that I ended up animating, right? So there's something about being able to track the sort of human contribution, the human thought process, the fact that AI is not just push a button and out squirts crap, but there's this intentional process there. And if you can capture all of that, it might be valuable for things like copywriting things in the future, right? This was not just push a button and out came crap. This was a thoughtful thing. But then you can also extract things like, hey, which tools were used for this kind of output, for that kind of output, for that kind of output. So I just wanted to share it because, again, I'm starting to get my head around, this AI. It's more of an ecosystem, right? This is going to be prevalent in everything we do. And so tracking individual tools just doesn't make sense anymore. And this was a workflow that all of a sudden I could go, I think I could figure out a way to talk about AI in that context and what's good and what's bad. So thoughts, questions?
Yeah. I mean, I think I think it's also the evolution of all of us with generative AI living in the world as it is. New tools have come out that have blown our minds, right? And it's hard not to talk about the tools. It was hard not to talk about ChatGPT when it came out, right? Or Midjourney, or look at what I just did with Stable Diffusion, because now all of a sudden we have tools, no one knows how to use any of them, and we're doing unbelievable things that our human minds are like, what's happening? Mm-hmm. But now, 2.5 years in that we've been doing this, you start to realize that it really isn't about the tools, and it's about our own human voice. And it's a very familiar path to being a photographer, right? I mean, you learn how to use a camera, you learn how to use a light, you learn how to use all these different pieces of a photograph. And no one ever looks at one of my photographs and says, oh, you obviously use this tool to make this photograph. You obviously use this camera. You obviously use these lights, right? They can
this is a low lighting, that's LED, right?
That's right, exactly. Wow, look at the pro photo strobe you used, right? And we do behind the scenes, and people do actually like to try to figure that out. But that's never what makes a great photograph. And so what makes a really interesting experience with generative AI has nothing to do with, oh, I just use this tool or I just use this tool. It's how we put them together and sort of spoke our human voice into it, that the experience so worthwhile.
Yep. And
so I appreciate this framework, because what it says is, this is what I made, and now if people want to understand it, I can talk about how I did it, and people can take something away from that, and then maybe go learn this one tool to learn how to do voice, or learn this one tool to learn how to do imagery.
Yeah. There's also, I mean, one of my pet peeves recently is that a lot of the AI doomers talk about AI as it's this singular thing. Oh, that was AI generated, right? So it's a piece of crap because somebody just pushed a button and out it came. Right. And that is rarely the case for certainly for most of the people in the salon that we're using combinations of tools. And to your point, gaining some expertise and some mastery over different combinations of tools and being able to say, hey, I want to do this. Okay, if I want to do that, then I use this, and that. And so what this framework, if we can sort of figure out how to turn this into something, could be a really powerful framework for the salon to kind of more formally share the knowledge that we've been all gaining over the past 2.5 years. Right now, we say, hey, go into the show and tell area, the look what I made area, and post an image and put your prompt in there is what we used to say, right? Post the image, put the prompt. Well, now what if it's, post the video and put the 27 prompts, the 422 images, right?
Right.
It's increasingly complicated to do that, but maybe there's a way we could put something together that allows us to start to contribute these workflows in a way that if someone says, hey, if I want to do this, where do I start? Well, here's a list of the tools that were used. Here's the list of, number of iterations it took, things like that, which I think could be a valuable counter argument and just kind of proof of this isn't just push a button and get crap out, right? This is a process.
I think one of the most exciting things is that you can do a video of your process and share it, right? Mm-hmm. I know, I think Rick McCauley and I were talking on Monday last week, and he had a bunch of things he wanted to do and was trying a video and was excited. I was like, well, how about you come into the salon? Like,
Yeah.
I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night last week. Rick came on for 2 hours, just dropped knowledge about what he was working on, right? And I would invite anyone, like if you have knowledge you want to drop, or you have something you want to share, let's put an event in. Like, come give us an hour talk. Like, what do you want to share? And then maybe from there you can start dropping in tools as well. I think for me, that's the next step, right? Is getting more of our salon voices being heard through video and sharing events.
Love it. Love it. All right. If anyone has any thoughts or questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, or if you want to say something, feel free to raise your hand. Let me do some news items, and then we'll bring up Pierson. I'm excited to hear more about Jellypod, but let me talk you through a couple of things that I think are valuable to pay attention to. The first one is Midjourney video. It is just nuts, and it's nuts. I've talked about this a few times before, but the context for Midjourney video is to understand. When they launched Midjourney video, Midjourney put out a long Twitter post that talked about, listen, we may look like an image company, like an image generation company, but that's not what we are. What we have always been thinking about is how can we do real-time immersive engagement, real-time 3D worlds where you kind of enter into a world, holodeck kind of stuff. And they said the components of being able to do that, the first one was the imagery. Can we get the imagery right? And then the second one is video. And then the third one is 3D worlds and objects, where you can enter and interact with all of the objects in the world. And then the fourth is real time, doing all of that in real time. And so that's where they're headed. So where they're headed is the ability to step into this world that you create. There's something about the video that they released that just interprets the images that are created in Midjourney in a different way, in a way that seems to understand not only the physics, but almost the artistic intent of the image. If it's got flat elements in it, it tends to animate things in flat elements. It doesn't arbitrarily add 3D to stuff that shouldn't have 3D. But when stuff does have 3D, it's really good at that. I would also sort of take it a step backwards and say there's a reason why Midjourney images just feel different than all the other image generators. There's just something different. It's more artistic. There's something more alive about it. And it might be that how they trained the image tool was sort of knowing where this is going. So maybe there's a lot more, 3D game imagery or 3D games that these things were trained on. Maybe that's why the images are better. I'm not sure. But if you haven't played with Midjourney video, Midjourney basically stays the same. You make images, and then there's just a little animate area where you can animate with sort of low movement or high movement, and then you can either add a prompt or not. And even if you're just hitting the automatic animation things, the results are pretty incredible. You get 4 videos for every image, for every time you hit the button. You can get unlimited relaxed mode videos at the $60 a month level, which may seem like a lot, but if you compare this to the other video tools, it's significantly cheaper. It doesn't have sound effects. It doesn't have acting like VO3 does. But if you haven't played with it, you should absolutely play with it. And Leah, as a picture maker, where are you with Midjourney video? Where have you where are you landing with it?
So as a still photographer, about 10 years ago, everyone in the still photography world said, Leah, you need to shoot motion, you need to do motion, you need to make motion, you need to do motion. And I did a few campaigns where I brought a DP on with me, and I would tell the DP what I want and direct and edit. That's fine. It's not what I'm inspired by, and it never has been. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think it's really cool, and it's really cool that I can do it, but I'm not really that interested in spending hours getting a prompt right so I can make a video. I'm much more interested still in 2-dimensional imagery and the 2-dimensional world. So that's how I feel about it. I think it's amazing. I think it's incredible that I can take a still image and so quickly move it and make it move. I still find that the human movement is a little bit jerky I still feel like it looks a little bit uncanny, like I haven't quite gotten over the uncanny valley. Like all those portraits that I've made, when I start giving those women things to do, all of a sudden it goes from looking like someone of a photograph that I made to looking like, oh gosh, that got real weird real fast. That's probably because I'm not actually as good a generator with video as I am with still imagery. I'm not sure, but you know, we'll see. Maybe, I mean, Rick just posted, I've avoided video like the plague until now, a fellow photographer, photojournalist. So perhaps that, you know, this is the thing that will bring me in. I don't know, but it feels like magic. I think Midjourney feels a lot like magic to me in whatever it does. Especially after, you know, writing Python scripts to get Stable Diffusion to do stuff that I wanted it to do. It feels like it's just so cool how it just feels like magic as a creative person. I can just create things. I think it's very cool. So
and I would agree with you. As magical as it is, it's still janky, right? There's still things it doesn't do well, but there's for me, it's the interpretation of the image, how it interprets the image is really quite remarkable. And just again, it just feels different than other tools. Another news item that I think is worth talking about is the Anthropic copyright lawsuit. So a group of, I think it was 4 or 5 authors basically did a class action lawsuit against Anthropic and said, hey, you've stolen all of our, you know, copywritten works and we want our billions. Give us our billions. A judge came down with a ruling in the past week or so that was really interesting. It was kind of a split decision. The first half of the decision is actually a very informed decision from a technical perspective. Basically, what the first half of the decision is that training AI on whatever works is a transformative act, which is part of the fair use argument is if you're taking, a copywritten piece as a starting point and you do something transformative, if you transform it, then the use of that copywritten work falls under fair use. And so the first half of the ruling said that when you embed books into a large language model, they are, fundamentally altered. The original work ceases to exist. So it's a transformative act. Therefore, fair use applies. But then they also said the second half of the ruling was, if you're using copywritten works that you paid for and do that, then it's fair use. But if you've stolen those copywritten works, then it's theft, right? So Anthropic had done both. I thought this was kind of fascinating. Anthropic had spent millions and millions of dollars buying millions of books, physically scanning them to train their systems. But they also had, archives full of stolen copywritten material sitting on their hard drive saying, well, we might use that someday. And the judge basically said, those stolen works are not okay, right? You can't train on stolen copywritten work. But if you pay for it, then it's transformative and then it's considered fair use. So really fascinating case. I think the fact that it said that it's transformative will be used as a precedent moving forward. So there's lots and lots of these coming. I don't think this is by any means the end of this argument. I think this is one in a series of lawsuits that will probably go back and forth on all of these issues. There's a rumor that July 17th is the launch of GPT-5, so get ready. The only thing that I find interesting about what's going on with all the frontier model companies these days is none of them are talking about AGI anymore. Artificial general intelligence, that's basically where it can sort of get as good as humans at doing most jobs. They're all talking about artificial superintelligence. And it's almost like someone flipped a switch and they just are not talking about the AGI anymore. It's all ASI.
Why is that, do you think?
My instinct is that they've all kind of hit a different level internally, where I assume AGI has been achieved internally, but I don't know. But it is just uncanny that not a single one of them anymore is. If you see any of the interviews with any of the leaders of those companies, they're now talking about superintelligence, not artificial general intelligence. So we will see. I've heard everything about GPT-5 that it's, going to be, just this massive transformative thing to it's not that big a deal and it's just going to feel like GPT-4. So I don't have a flipping clue, but the fact that they've changed how they're talking about it feels significant to me, but we'll see. Maybe July 17th, we'll know. And then the last thing is, I just thought this was good. If you've not played with GenSpark is one of those autonomous agents that'll go out and do deep research for you. It'll create slides for you. It'll do all sorts of cool things. They just cut a deal with OpenAI. So GenSpark is now powered by OpenAI, GPT 4.1. The interactions have a 1 million token context window. You can do things with real-time voice where you can have GenSpark go make a bunch of phone calls for you and do research that way. So if you haven't played with GenSpark in a while or ever, GenSpark's one that's worth playing with. So those are it. Those are the biggies. All right. Let's see.
I haven't played with GenSpark. I think this is a good time to play with it.
GenSpark's really cool.
I'm like on that list of things to play with, which is getting longer and longer. My AI play with list is like, oh.
I know. Well, speaking of fun things to play with, if you have not played with Jellypod, Pierson is the CEO and co-founder of Jellypod. We're going to bring him up here. It's a really cool tool. We created a podcast on the AI Learning Lab called What the Fact, and just, over the course of 3 or 4 weeks, we did a 20-episode series of What the Fact, and the concept was we came up with it in ChatGPT and then basically just pasted the concept into Jellypod, where we had designed the 2 co-hosts and the voices and all that sort of stuff, and it just did what it did, and made us this podcast. So Jellypod is an AI-powered podcasting studio. And with that, Pierson, are you ready to come wow us and impress us? And
yes, I am.
Take us to another plane of existence.
Yeah, I am. I'm so ready. And it was super cool. You both touched on some really awesome points that I'm going to talk about a little bit too, about being fun and accelerating creativity. And I can't emphasize the fun part. I love the values of the AI Salon here. And I mean, it's something that I think about all the time. Like, I've been in technology for a while, not as long as a lot of you. And
we're older.
A little, no,
just a little.
I'm on the younger end for sure. But my inexperience has always been like, hey, like, I think fun is like the #1 driving motivation for me. And it's kind of how my product philosophy has always been. I've always loved computers. Always loved creation. And I wanted to do things that felt fun. And if the product that we're building, Jellypod, isn't fun, that's a failure on our side. And how can we make it more fun? So that's just, yeah. And I will share my screen right now, and then I'll jump right in to this conversation. So thanks so much for having me today. It was a few months ago for anyone that was on Kyle's live. I don't remember what month this was, but probably 6 months ago. Yeah, I hopped on. We talked a little bit about Jellypod.
Yeah, I think it was March. I think we were in the middle of doing those March. Maybe it was early March. I don't know, something like that.
March, yeah. So it's a few months ago. And we're talking about Jellypod. Brandon got us connected, and the series that you both did, 20 parts. It's so cool. Just seeing you do it. So for everyone else on here that maybe hasn't used Jellypod or just curious to learn about AI podcasting or podcasting in the age of AI, my name is Pierson. I am the co-founder and CEO of Jellypod, and Jellypod is an AI podcast studio. And the first half of this talk, I just kind of wanted to share a little bit about, media creation, that process, kind of how I've thought about it over the course of the last 2 years. I founded Jellypod 2 years ago, but it's only been the last 6 months or so that it's been in the current form. And we started out as a mobile app, but now we're a podcast studio. So we went from personalized creation on the mobile side to now being a creative tool. So I kind of want to just kick things off by saying who I am. I'm an engineer by trade, designer by heart. I've always found that computers were a medium to go from, hey, I have some idea and I want to make this real. So back when I was young in elementary school, I loved video games. I loved playing Club Penguin was my favorite game as a young kid. If anyone of you guys remember that game, but when I was young, I was like, hey, I was really good at this game, and how can I share my knowledge with the world? And at that time, in the early 2000s, it was, the internet was growing. I was like, how do I make a website? And I learned, basic, Wix drag and drop website creation, some basic HTML to turn that idea that I had to make it real. But as somebody that was pretty young, I didn't really know how to ask the right questions or to think about, what did I really want to do? I just wanted to share with the world, hey, like, this is how to play the game better. And so I started to learn a little bit about website design, and then I moved into other sort of design focused tools, Blender as a 3D modeling tool. And I started to make mock-ups of homes and iPhones, I remember at the time, and other sort of tools like Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. And they were all very powerful creation tools. But the learning curve is just, there's so many buttons. There's so many things. And even today, like, I go back into Photoshop and make something like this background or this logo. I don't remember what drop down I have to click to go to extrude the edges or to make the thing the right color. But I know what I want. And so I've always been like a really proponent of vibe creating and that term, but that term didn't really exist. But I still think of that as like the core belief that I have is I have some idea. The computer is going to be a machine and a tool to go from what I want to exist into reality. And so a little bit of background, vibe creating wasn't possible at that point. So I was like, I'm going to go study engineering. I studied computer science at UCLA. And then after that, I loved AI. I went to work for Amazon. I worked on Alexa for a while. We can jump into the craziness and how Alexa, should have probably dominated the whole AI voice space. It didn't, and it hasn't been. And then now I left and I started Jellypod about 2 years ago. And Jellypod's a AI podcast studio. And it's always been this like pursuit of Jarvis. Iron Man, such a cool movie. I think everyone probably here has seen it. If you haven't, definitely watch it. But it's always that that promise of, I want you to do something. I want this computer to do something, and don't be be reactive. If I need you to be reactive, be proactive in a sense where like, hey, you're doing something wrong. Like, let me help direct you and fix it. But never get in the way of what the user kind of wanted, and be an amplification device of kind of user's intent. And so I'll get into this later, but there's like 3 A's that I like to think about AI. Amplification of users' like abilities, augmentation to expose new sort of unexplored directions of what a user was thinking about, and amplification, augmentation, and acceleration. So what you want to do, how do you help them to get there faster? And so this has all been just super hard until transformers and LLMs and what's happened in the last few years. And honestly, it's hard just because we're bad communicators at the end of the day. Humans, we communicate and we talk about a lot of stuff, but our intent is usually unclear, and there's a lot of context that just goes without saying. And AI doesn't know if it should interpret what you're not saying. And that's the problem. And most people just don't know what they want. And so when coming to creativity, this is, we were just talking about this with photography or with Midjourney. Midjourney has this sort of feel to it. It kind of expresses itself as a model that doesn't glaze all the images that it generates, kind of like GPT image does. And creative processes are iterative. You have a vague idea of what you want, and you refine it over time. And so that's kind of this mental model that we've built Jellypod on. And Jellypod, And so the mental model, so before I jump into exactly Jellypod, but there's these two models of creation, I think, today. The old model being like the tradesmith, the person that was a master of tools. You know how to do the thing. It's an imperative process where it's like, hey, I go from wood, a tree, to wood, wood to frames, frames to a wall, and a wall to a house. And you know how to do that process. And the new model is more of the architect. It's top down. It's like, hey, I want to build a house. I don't have to know how to chop down the tree and build the 2x4s and assemble them, but I want the house to look like this. And I can go deeper in areas that I want to go deeper, but I don't need to unless I really need that control. And so it's such a cool world that we're living in, with being more of an architect than the tradesmiths. And so this kind of jumps into what I just mentioned about what AI should do: accelerate creation process, augment your thinking, and then amplify those ideas. And those are the three core product philosophies that we have at Jellypod. And I'll just jump right into it. So I didn't want this to really be a talk about like what Jellypod is necessarily. I think Kyle and Brandon and you all have seen that through that podcast that you've created over the course of the last few weeks. But briefly, it's a AI podcast studio that helps people bring their stories to life. And typically it's stories that would not have been told otherwise. And I think this is core to creation in AI. People have unique interests and niche insights about the world. If you're a doctor and you work on, you're a pediatric doctor working with kids, a lot of your time is spent, with children, and you're knowledgeable, you're caring, but you're never going to be able, or unlikely, to share the knowledge that you have or your experiences with the world on a podcast. Some people do, but those people are superhuman, beyond being just a doctor. And so Jellypod, being an AI podcast studio, allows you, without going to a recording studio and actually recording your voice, and with another person every week or every other week, to come to a platform that allows you to clone your voice, design a co-host, give them a backstory, provide context information, and then create a podcast that has complete creative control, accurate to your vision, and bring your story to life. And we've seen this like with so many different use cases, with medicine and health by real practitioners, business and technology news, fictional stories and literature, and all these different kind of genres are people that have a passion about something. I saw this one today. It was a fictional Harry Potter podcast. It was, they created Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, Ron Weasley, and they put those three characters into a podcast and talked about like if they had a podcast. It wasn't talking about real stuff from the books. It was just imagining what those characters, if they were having a podcast about their classes in Hogwarts, what would it be about? And that was really cool. It's like blending the reality and fictional stories together with literature. And I just saw a comment in the chat about retaining rights to your voice. And yeah, so that's like also something that's super important to us too. We're a tool to, make it so if you come and clone your voice on our platform and you share that with the world, you retain those rights to your voice, those works are yours. Exactly, yeah. So that's super important. And the other thing too, people, I think when we think about AI slop, I think that's a term that we hear all the time. We started running some Facebook ads about a month ago, and the amount of comments that people posted on our Facebook ads about AI slop is crazy.
Yep.
It's wild. It's like, why would anybody listen to an AI podcast? And it's pretty interesting. I mean, why would anybody watch a fictional movie or an animated series of, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I've seen every animated Star Wars. I've seen every movie. And you could argue that, like, why would you watch some animated Luke Skywalker or Anakin Skywalker? Because it's fun. It was entertaining. And
they're not even real people, man.
they're not even real people. And so that's always kind of the argument. I think that the AI slop argument breaks down. But that's kind of what we're doing. And this is how it works. I didn't put a demo in here, and I mean, we could do it too, Kyle.
I would love for you to do a demo because I know I appreciate you being sensitive to not wanting this to be a Jellypod ad, but you know, to the point earlier, it is so hard to keep up with the tools. Probably a lot of people on here don't. When you say it's an AI podcast studio, what does that actually mean? Like, I would love for you to say, here's how you design characters. Just hit the highlights of what the platform is. I'd love to see that.
I also want to just jump in really quickly too as an artist. And to me, this is your creative baby. I mean, this is your art. This is your piece. This is what you have built. And so showing us a demo of it feels like it takes it from something you're talking about to something that you've made. And we get to see that.
And have pride in. I agree with that. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah,
I do.
Absolutely. Well, then I'll do the demo. Let me bring up my screen real quick.
Yep. You'll have to unshare this tab and then share the other tab.
Sweet. I think there we go.
Yep. Beautiful.
Perfect. Sweet. Okay, cool. So yeah, this is Jellypod. This is the main screen. When you just create a new account, you get to this screen and pretty much you have a familiar text box right here where you can start to create your episodes. But the first thing that you do when you come to Jellypod is you create a podcast. So we'll go right here on the left-hand side to click on podcasts. And this is a brand new account that I just made for this. And then click create new podcast. So a podcast is a series of episodes. So sometimes people get confused, and I would love feedback from anybody because I sometimes say podcast, but I mean an episode. But podcast, generally, it means like the whole series, and then each podcast has episodes. So we create a podcast episode or create a podcast series, and let's say
that's actually really good language. A podcast series is clear.
Right.
Like if you put instead of create podcast, if you put create podcast series, that actually does feel clear.
Right. Yeah. I'll make that change probably maybe later tonight.
Yeah. One of the things, if you don't know, so while we were doing the what the fact things, I would discover bugs live on my live, and then I would make fun of Pierson and Jellypod for this horrible, obvious bug. And like within 15 minutes, Brandon was like, "Oh, he fixed it now." So they were fixing things in real time. So very responsive team, which is super cool. So sorry, I won't interrupt.
No, thanks. I appreciate that. I mean, it's a few of us, and now we're gonna have some AI agents working on those bugs in the background. So that's been crazy. But yeah, so we'll create a podcast series, and we already have 2 hosts created. It might be better actually to start with the hosts, but you know what? Let's take a step back because I think sometimes let's just take a step back and go to hosts. So the big thing is that you can create hosts, you put them in your podcast series, and then you create episodes. We have 2 hosts already, Charlotte and Michael, but we'll create one right now live. And it's super easy to create a host. You just put in a name. Let's do like Max, Max. This is the hardest thing. So this is a great example of like accelerating creation because sometimes it's hard to think of a name. Max who's Max? So that's one of the key things where if you click generate host right here, I don't have to fill out the name, the gender, the backstory. The backstory kind of provides your character's depth. You can say, give it previous experiences and whatever. But if I just
Does
don't
your
know
host
what I
have to be a person?
It doesn't have to be a person.
Mm.
So we can just do generate host. We can just click, let's say Max is a pilot who wants to fly to Mars. And I'll click generate, and then Max Hollander is the name, and it'll fill that out for me. And I can review that. It's a long backstory, but I could review that host if I want to, make some edits. And then I can either clone my voice, I can choose a voice, or I can design a voice. And design a voice is actually pretty cool, where it will just actually use the backstory to create a voice that would match Max.
That's really smart. That's really slick.
And so this whole process here, I mean, I kind of got some writer's block, and the AI helped me out there, you know? So let's see.
Hey there, I'm Max Hollander, test pilot, flight sim designer, lover of all things that...
Can you hear that?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. That one actually sounded pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty
Hey
good.
there, I'm Max Hollander, test pilot, flight sim designer.
Let's just go with that first one. So we'll click the first voice preview, create that host. And now here we go. We have Max Hollander. So now that we have our voice, we'll go and create the podcast. And this could be, I don't know, does anyone have any suggestions on the title? That he's a space guy. Maybe just do Mars missions. That's an easy one. And you have pretty much full control over the podcast. The language, you could choose up to 30 different languages. So if you're, speak Hindi, or you want your podcast to be in Spanish, you could do that. It could be a public podcast, so visible on YouTube and on our podcast distribution network. And then the description is going to be a show about how to get to outer space and creating and mining asteroids with AI robots. And then we'll just select Max, Charlotte, and Michael. We'll do 3 hosts. This is a new feature that just came out this week. So we used to limit it to 2 hosts.
Oh, cool.
But now you can add up to 4.
Oh, wow. That's great.
So we can actually generate a quick preview right now of all those hosts and just hear what they say. Takes usually
Charlotte, ever feel like AI is the autopilot of the future, but sometimes it hits turbulence you didn't expect?
Absolutely, Max. It's like navigating through clouds. Complex, but with the right instruments, we find clarity.
Well said, Charlotte. And Michael, I bet your AI tools are like the co-pilots keeping everything smooth on the tech front?
You got it, Max, though sometimes I wish my AI co-pilot could handle my coffee runs too.
Michael, if only AI could fetch coffee, our podcasts would be even smoother. Max, maybe...
So that's a little quick demo, so you can listen to what they would sound like in your show, and then we'll just create it. So we didn't upload cover art, so it'll generate cover art for us. And Rick, I see that comment right there about if you can load Notebook LM audio script. You can load a script in, and that's also a new feature. So if you created a script in Notebook LM or in Google Docs or ChatGPT, you can just copy and paste it right here, and it'll convert it into Jellypod format. So you can do all the editing and everything. So that we have a script uploads now. But yeah, so we have Mars Missions. That's our new podcast series with Michael, Max, and Charlotte. We have a domain name.
Wait, just be clear. It automatically, when you submitted it, created the image?
Correct. So yeah, we get the image there, and then we have no episodes created yet. But we'll just go and create the episode. So here's really where the magic happens. So we're back to that home screen. You see that we've selected our podcast, Mars Missions. We see Charlotte, Max, and Michael here. And this is where you can kind of enter in anything that you want the podcast to talk about. It could be plain text, it could be source if you had a interesting article about NASA or something. This is kind of where you add sources and it grounds that podcast episode in the content that you've uploaded. But we'll just do recent NASA updates about Mars, and then we'll turn on web search. And so that's going to go search the web for recent NASA updates about Mars, and then we could direct it and prompt it a little bit, saying, focus on asteroid mining and rare earths we can get from Mars. I'll add that as a source as well. So if you had a PDF or a website link, I can go and just add that there, and we'll just confirm the source information. So this is everything it pulled from the internet about recent NASA updates about Mars. So we've got some interesting new things that are really new, like May. So this is not in the model. It's actually using the web. And then we'll create the outline. So right now it's just pretty much taking all that content and creating an outline, which it's going to be 3 chapters. And this is kind of how I can guide the actual transcript. So if I want it to be longer, I can add a new chapter. If I want it to be shorter, I can delete. And if one of the chapters just, I didn't want it to talk about something, I can edit that completely.
And when it's creating this, it's doing it in the context of the overall description of the series.
That's correct. So,
so like if you say the series is, this is a wacky, irreverent, take on space, then it will sort of do things within that context.
Right. Yes, exactly. So it takes in consider pretty much everything that you added to the podcast. So the title of the podcast, the the description of that podcast, the hosts, their backstories. If you've created multiple episodes in your podcast, also a new feature in the last week or so, we have some basic memory. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah. So the previous episode, if we had this is the second, let's assume this is the second episode. Maybe the first one talked about the sun. It would say, hey, remember when we talked about the sun last time? We can't mine the sun, but we could maybe mine Mars or the moon. So that's something there. It's host building and world building. So yeah. And then I see we have a hand here.
Oh yeah. Just a quick comment on that. So in my Curious Spark series, my character actually took it upon himself to create his own backstory. So he created a location that he lived in when he was a child called Inventon. And he's referenced Inventon in multiple episodes with no prompting from me.
Wow, that's cool. That's awesome. Yeah, this is kind of like the what we want to get to is you have these hosts with some basic backstory and they build up their personality over time. You put them into a podcast series and you hopefully can kind of grow some sort of connection as a listener to those hosts, if that's what you want as a creator. So yeah. And then we'll just generate the script. So generate that script. I read the outline. It looked good to me. I didn't want to make any edits. But now you see the script is just popping in, streaming in like that. Yeah, you could have characters from the book, Rick. And sometimes what we're working on right now is optimizing the source extraction. So if you had that big book, sometimes it takes a while, but we're looking to make it quicker to extract all that content from your source. But some still needs some improvement for sure. And it's still working here. So we had 3 chapters, so the 3rd chapter. And this is also pretty new where it streams in the text like this. It used to be just you had to wait, and which was pretty frustrating. But now you actually can start to review and see what the
yeah, that's a nice addition.
Yeah, totally. And Rick, the length limit right now is every chapter is about 2 to 3 minutes when you create the audio. So we limit to 10 chapters, so it's normally no longer than a 30-minute episode right about now. But we're working to try to make it more flexible, to make it longer. Yeah, so as you can see, you have the transcript on the right-hand side. You can make edits to all of this. But the first thing actually I'm going to do is just generate the audio to get that started. And so right now it's generating audio, and we can just read through this. And if I wanted to make a change, I could delete it, but I'm going to keep this as is while it's generating. And it usually will take 20 to 60 seconds to generate all the audio. But let me see if there's any other questions while it's generating.
The one Gwen just put in there is great. Can you have a pre-production meeting with your co-hosts if you're one of the hosts, or do they have to stick to the script?
You could. So no, that's interesting. That's a lot of people are asking like, hey, can I just prompt to change the transcript of the outline? I mean, what you could probably do as the most, like, you could just add in as the first chapter some extra instructions, but it's a feature that we're working on right now where we just want to add like a higher level prompt that you could just guide it in a certain way, like a directing, kind of like directing in Notebook LM, or maybe you read this transcript and you just want to, hey, I just cut down half of it or add something new, like kind of more chat-based interface. And here's the video and audio that got generated. So,
Hey everyone, welcome back to Mars Missions. I'm Michael Foster, here with Max Hollander and Charlotte Bennett. Today's episode is all about the wild new discoveries on Mars and what they could mean for the future, both for science and maybe for our wallets. Max, you want to kick us off with what Curiosity's been up to?
Absolutely, Michael. So Curiosity's been on Mars for, over 4,000 sols now? That's Martian days for anyone keeping score.
So I won't listen to the whole thing. Obviously, I'll post this, or I can share this link with everybody later. But so the cool thing is now I listen to this, it sounds good, and I can make edits. So if I didn't like how it ended with, Max, you want to kick us off? I could just make an edit. It'll notify me, hey, like you have to regenerate that audio because you made a change, because currently the audio had that previous generation. You can just generate that little block.
Oh, that's
and
So cool.
And
how do you are you able to train the host to have more personality? Like, how do you determine, like, I don't know what the word is, like, what's the humanness? Like, what is how do they become more different from other versions of other AIs that might be in a podcast?
Totally.
What's the term for that?
I don't know the right term, but it's a good and important question. I mean, the first step when you're creating your host is like, what do you put in their backstory? How much do you give them? And that's just very high level, and that gets mixed in with your podcast and everything else. And so that's step one. Step two is what we just released, was like memories. We actually made this explicit decision because memories are at the podcast level versus the host level. And when you're thinking about building a world, and this is kind of what we're doing here, it's like we're building this world where these three characters are talking about Mars. Do you give in AI, do you give these characters their own individual memories, or do you let the podcast have memories? And it's this weird thing where I think most people be like, oh, give the host memories, like they're people. We've actually explicitly decided against that, because the way that a lot of users use the platform still wanted to think of, like, they still think about these as hosts that they can kind of swap in and out, and they don't think about them as personalities, like as people, which they probably shouldn't. And so it's like this weird kind of area where, oh, you want to create like real hosts and real people and have back memories and backstories associated with that person, but we actually just kept the memory at the podcast level, so you could swap in and out people as you iterate and as you're being more of a creator versus like the producer. I don't know if that's entirely makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because to me, it's like, is it a character-driven conversation about two people and their backstories and their characters who come together, or is it? It sounds like you're saying more of like a world-driven conversation, that this is the world that sort of drives the narrative, and the people are like of that world, right?
100%. Definitely
Yeah.
the latter. And it's interesting because I think it's just, there's a phenomenon when a new technology comes out, people think about that new technology in like the previous generation technology. And something that never existed. And so when people reason about how to use the platform, you know, we have to kind of meet users where they are and how they naturally think about it, versus being like, really, we could totally go that route. And then it might just be really confusing for a lot of people. Like, yo, I deleted this host. I just wanted to swap them out, but now all their memories are gone. I didn't really mean that. Like, I just want to swap all of them. And so it's interesting. One day
That's
I
an
would
interesting
like
way
to
to think about it. I really appreciate that. Like, even how do you start thinking like the model that you're creating and how you then get to decide what direction to take it is so fascinating. So cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I know I see some hands in the queue here. If there's other questions.
Let's see.
Hey, Pierce.
Yeah. Yes. Hey, Rick.
Hey, how you doing? I'm a super fan. I actually joined up just last week and got excited because I do at least 300 Google Notebook episodes already. Really deep dives and deep things. I want to be able to control how it's done. I want to swap out their voices for mine. I want to train it on my voice. And in the book, you're welcome to download. It's a 1.4 megabyte file, but I put it into 11 Labs Reader, and it reads it back to me 4 hours of audio. So I read the book back to myself. It's a book I've been working on for over 3 years, and being able to put it in and pick a nice inflective voice. But if I could actually load it up with the characters from the book with the intact backstory and have it read the narrative that I've given it, it would just be, I'm directing a film.
Totally. No, I mean,
and then load up an avatar, a still picture, and animate the mouth movements, and I'm in heaven.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head here. What's interesting as an author, I mean, you wrote that book, right? With like you put a lot of intention behind like what each character says, and and the thing that, like, at least the way the product's designed around today, it's less of how can I create more like an audio book, but more as, hey, here's this context, and can we create supplementary material or supportive material in a world where that is like a source. And I think they're like 11 Labs does that great, where like you could just throw that book in there and then you create the characters, and they already know what they're saying. No, it's super cool. I mean, I would love to, like, think about where we talked about Iron Man earlier, like Jarvis and Tony Stark. Imagine if you could create characters in Jellypod or something where Tony Stark and Jarvis have a podcast, and it's like grounded in the world of Iron Man. It's not actually the content that was ever talked about in Iron Man, but it's, they're talking about like some backstory. And I think you're going to see that in media, where there's going to be more blending between, hey, this is a movie that's out, and then this is reality. Just like Severance, they did a scene in the Grand Central Station where they put all the actors in Severance in Grand Central Station, kind of blending and blurring the lines between, hey, this is a show, but the actors are playing the characters in real life. And I think you're going to start to see like that sort of fictional blend with reality in podcasting and media.
So it seems like you're designing an experience where you're letting the characters have some agency and surprising you.
Absolutely.
As opposed to what I'm trying to do is drive the whole experience of what I've already written. So it's curated knowledge versus, are you going to go both directions, or do you think that you're down the road of a fresh experience that you kind of make it and experience it simultaneously?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know we're leaning towards like the latter, just because it's kind of a little bit more novel, I would say, and a little bit more fun for a lot of people, because less people have content that they want read verbatim that they've been creating themselves. And so, I mean, I'm not sure. There's so many options and ways to go about it.
It's world building on the fly. I mean, for Google Notebook, I can load up any subject and I can do 300 different podcasts.
Right.
And it's amalgamating for me. So I'm curator, but I'm also the world builder.
Right.
And so I'm loading in all of Tolkien's stories and then letting it build off of that. Whereas you're just doing off the fly an experience of enjoying things. Oh, and the words you're looking for is emotional context. So Hume, Hume, there's
Right.
57 different emotional intonations. And 11 Labs allows you to actually insert them where you want it to be, like laughing, crying, etc. And then that changes and shifts the voice in tonalities. So that's something you could certainly engineer in there. I know that there's off-the-shelf open source stuff to do exactly that.
I think it's really interesting to think about not necessarily saying, I want this intonation here, I want it this way, but to create the entire backstory, to create where this person, where this character comes from, to tell it everything that, the same thing an actor would do to prepare for a role, right? And then to see how the AI creates that is so exciting for me, that it's not, I don't actually need to come up with that and do that. It's that because of what I'm putting in and because of the prompts and what I'm choosing, I'm going to get the character that's created by the AI will understand that someone who comes from this area would have this kind of intonation, or someone who grew up during this time might speak a little bit differently because they were listening to a television at the time in the 1950s versus someone now. Like all of those historical references, that's really fascinating that voice would have that in there, right?
Imagine a children's book, Leia, that you start with your characters and then you prompt the backstory for what the children's characters are, and you create a voice like of a dog or a cat or something. And then you on the fly with your child sit there and have a story told that they've invented.
Yeah,
that's kind of what Brandon
Anne has had her hand raised for like 15 minutes. I want to hear.
Oh no. Well, this is so fascinating, and I wish we could talk until the wee hours of the morning about this, particularly the part that you just kind of offhandedly mentioned about there being more and more of a blending of fiction and reality in the content around us. I would love to hear more about that. But I wanted to ask a little bit of a nerdier question. One of the things that Kyle and I always ask people on the AI Readiness Project podcast is, from where you're sitting, in your zone of genius, your industry, your role as a startup founder, what trends in AI are you paying attention to?
Yeah, that's crazy tough. The biggest things for me that I'm paying attention to are, well, I think too many people are paying attention to AI agents and that world. And I say this because I think there's a lot of money flowing into that space, a lot of very smart people there. And I don't know if it's like, I genuinely think it's like OpenAI or Google, and somebody's going to win that, like Manus and those companies. It would be very hard to compete in that space. And I also don't know if everything needs to have an agent. I think this is something where a lot of people are defaulting to, we want this really smart agent that can go and do all these things and just, work with everything well. But the way that we've designed Jellypod is, hey, I think the UX and the design element, we've had 20, 30 years of websites. We've mastered how to make good websites and make them look nice and be usable. We don't need a voice agent or a chat box for everything. And I think a lot of people are like defaulting to that, where reality, maybe we should need some really helpful AI sprinkled in throughout that process to help combat writer's block when we're making a post, or when you're generating that first version of your Instagram caption. And I think so few people are thinking about what I think is the funner part of the world. It's like creation. And how can you make it easier for people to do videos? Like Google Flow is a cool product that, it's like they're trying to combat Premiere Pro, like Adobe's media suite. And LTX Studio, I know they were on here like a while ago. So yeah, I mean, it's all that. And then the other thing I think that's super important for anybody building in this space is having the observability into how your platform's failing. I know, Kyle, you were saying how we were good at doing bugs. The only reason why we were really doing good at getting to those bugs on live was that we have monitoring. We we're watching the stream at some points, or Brandon would ping us like, hey, we'll go fix that. Obviously, it's quality for us. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, if your product's broken, like it's super easy to get a demo out. And, you know, it's okay, get the demo out, get the broken thing out into the world fast, obviously. But what's going to stick around is that, hey, are you putting the polish around the edges to make sure that the 10% of errors go down to 5, go down to 1, go down to 0.1, and iterate on that. And so many, I think, people and engineers, it's not the fun thing to do. And that's why you kind of start to see a lot of products fizzle out, because they just start getting broken. They add more and more features, and then they eventually are crippled with tech debt that's vibe coded, or, you know, they're not actually reviewing the code that all these AIs are writing as much as they should. And then eventually the project stalls and will fall off the cliff. So it's a balance, moving fast, fixing bugs, and yeah.
Can I? Well, I want you to finish the demo here, because I assume we go from here to how we publish it. But I'll save my question. I've got a question, which is related to what are you paying attention to. But yeah, just keep going with your demo.
Cool. Yeah, and pretty much at this point, so we've generated the audio. We have the transcript. It looks great. There's a few things that we could do here. We can, if we wanted to publish this to like Instagram or TikTok, we could change the portrait mode or square. So now you don't just get a landscape. And then we've also added in other templates. So this is the one that's been around for a while, but now we have captions. We can actually see the captions change across the screen, spotlight, and karaoke. So this is kind of like, you see the captions, and
we're talking decane, undecane, dodecane. These are molecules with up
and then move. So you can just edit that, and then we'll just click publish the episode, and we'll publish it now. This would be super funny if this just fails right now on demo, right? You know, fixing all the errors and stuff. And yes, Rick, I do see that here. You can add music and intro and outro music at the beginning and end of your podcast, and actually in between speech blocks. And soon we're going to be adding the ability to add music over multiple speech blocks, so that you might have an intro that fades in and speakers come. So this will take usually about 30 to 60 seconds, depending on how much volume is going on right now. But aggregate listener counts coming soon. Yeah, so I would love feedback on analytics. So you could also get analytics on like how many listeners are listening to it on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or whatever. And so, yeah, and the music question, it's your own music. We want to add a music library that we can generate music, but that's not something we have today. And then on publishing, so right now, by default, it'll just publish to your own website. So if anybody here wants to go to marsmissions.jellypod.ai, you can see it. It's live. marsmissions.jellypod.ai. I realize I'm not sharing that screen, but you can go there. And then if you want to go to Spotify, embed it into your own website, we have an embed player, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. So pretty much, if I click this, it'll prompt me to upgrade because it's a test account. Yeah, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube are like premium features, but you just have to add your RSS feed into Spotify, and then all your podcasts, when they click publish, will automatically get uploaded. So you only have to do that once, set it up once, and then podcast will automatically go. But that's pretty much the platform. I mean, yeah.
It's brilliant. It's quite slick. It's one of those things where you're if you look at any individual thing you've done, you can go, okay, I can see how they prompted that and this. You can look at the components and go, okay, I see how they did this. But there's something about because you've thought of this as a suite, as a podcast studio, I don't have to think about all that stuff now, right? And I can just think about, I just want something about Mars, right? And can get there. So it's really quite good. I'd love for you to talk, if you could, about how long you've been in business, how the product's evolving, what you're learning. You told us earlier before we started that there's three of you. There's three employees here doing this, which is remarkable that we're living in a world where, you know, a team of three can put something together like this. Congrats on that. I'd love to hear a bit about your journey. And then I'd also maybe within that like to understand how are you avoiding or embracing shiny object syndrome when a new voice model comes out or a new version or this or that? Like what is the instinct to go back and go, oh, we got to use the new model versus no, we need to fix the bugs we have and keep going. Like, so if you could just, I know those are two kind of separate things, but they're a little related.
Yeah, totally. I'll start on the second one just because it's top of mind. It's easy. I mean, well, it's not easy, but it's a balance, and that's a stupid answer, but I love fun, shiny things, and just like all of us, that's why we're here. And so we play around with it and everything. And then on the other side, it's very like we have all of our issues. We have a huge backlog of things. Like there are things that people said on this call that we want to get to that people ask for, and we know that that's important. And so there are some things that something new comes out, like for example, 11 Labs V3. They had their new API that had expressive like emotions. I've been banging on their door for that API access, and they haven't given it to us yet. The moment that comes out and we have access, that's like a high priority. Even though nobody's really asking for it, people want better voices. They want.
Oh yeah, that's one of those intangibles that if you get that right, that's what Leah was talking about. If you get that right, and this doesn't all of a sudden sound like an AI podcast, but just a podcast, yeah, that's pretty magical. So yeah, that's great.
Totally. And the funny thing about that too is that when you look at all the things that you could build, it's like there's so much stuff. At the end of the day, like, what do people care about? Does the podcast sound good?
Yeah.
And it's like everything else is
simple, actually.
Yeah.
I do think one of the things that's elegant about this is that, you know, it does need to sound good, but you also make it very easy to publish your podcast too. It's not just making the podcast, but very quickly, I've not just made this thing, you've made it very easy to share it with everyone. And I think that's really important, right? That's where it goes from just being tech I'm playing with to something that I made a thing and I put it out there.
Totally. And I think that was like Andre Karpathy, when Notebook LM came out, he made a series through Notebook LM about, hey, I don't remember what they were, just some random topics, and he put them on Spotify. And we were already like working on this and had some of these features out there in distribution. But it was just very reassuring because a lot of people, like what we said, what you all said, they don't want to stitch together all these different tools. Like, how do I go to, like, before this, I really didn't know how to get my podcast onto all these platforms. I've never went to Spotify for creators. It was intimidating. And most people don't really want to do it. They want to either be guided, and if they do have to do it, let them do it once and have to forget about it. You don't want to have to go and think about downloading your episode, uploading it to all your platforms, which, you know, you could do, but why do that? And so that's kind of like the verticalization of this platform. It's making it easy to go from zero, literally just an idea of Mars missions, to being on Spotify within an hour. The other side, Kyle, to like how we avoid some of those, like how do we know when to put something else in there, like some new shiny thing? We've kind of architected some parts of the system, so it's really easy to swap out. Let's say GPT-5 came out tomorrow. I would be able to go in there, test it really quickly through like an eval set, and deploy that model to ensure that there's aren't regressions. It actually is better, and it's not like we could switch to Claude tomorrow too if we wanted to, but we use OpenAI models. So hopefully you just build around, like, you know, where the future is slightly going, what could happen, and just make some guesses.
Yep.
But on the first question that you had about like the journey, I mean, it's been 2 years. So it's been 2 years, and we started in 2023, and we started with a mobile app that was like convert your emails into a podcast that you can listen to on your commute to work. It was like a personal product. That's actually what I left Amazon to do, was that, and it was working. But there's a whole can of worms of what I believe like personalized media is going to look like. I don't necessarily think people want personalized media as much as they say they do. think it might be one of those tar pit ideas where you say you want your show that's made just for you, but the reality is like you don't. If nobody else is watching it, you have no one to talk to about it. It's not going to actually have an audience. I don't know if it's actually going to be a thing that exists, maybe, but it wasn't really working. And we saw people sharing the podcast that they were creating personally, externally. And we're like, why can't we do this and scale this up and help people publish their podcasts?
How far in were you when you made that decision?
So we launched this podcast studio in November of last year in a beta, and then publicly launched it in January of 2025. So we were about a year into the mobile app until we pivoted to this. And yeah, Brandon.
Yeah. So I came from production background. Like I had a experience in radio production. I was familiar with these tools before I started with Jellypod. Jellypod definitely accelerated my journey, but it really got me thinking early on, how do we democratize? How do we generously lead? And so I wanted to share here that I'll drop the link in the chat if you're inspired by this and you want to go and create the first podcast, but you're really still not sure from a content creation standpoint where to start and what your angle would be. Pierson, Jason, and I collaborated on a project called the AI Podcast Master or AI Mastery Podcast, and it is available everywhere you can get podcasts. I've put it to YouTube, Spotify, everywhere that Jellypod allows you to connect to. It is available, and it is a 10-episode primer on how to use Jellypod to make podcasts made by Jellypod. So very recursive, eat your own dog food kind of stuff. But it's a great listen, and I've had some good feedback on it. So if you're curious and want to take that next step, it's a good place to start. Also, and I'm not sure how much I can say about this, but I know that Pierson and I have been working behind the scenes on something very cool for the AI Salon. So.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'll just reshare my screen real quick. So before we wrap up here, so we're doing a partnership for all of the AI Salon members, and if you want to try Jellypod, and there is a free tier, it's kind of limited, and you decide to upgrade, just use the code AI Salon, and you'll get 15% off all the premium plans. And yeah, so this is something that Brandon and I worked out, which is awesome. And honestly, if you're in that product and things aren't working for you, like your name's not being pronounced well, talk to us, because we want to make sure this product is working for you. We'll replenish those credits. I know, Kyle, this happened to you a bunch when you were creating the podcast series, and we want to make sure that you're having a great experience here. Like, there's costs associated with us too. Like, it's expensive to kind of do what we're doing, but we want to make sure that you have a great experience. So yeah, so use that code if you want to try it out on the premium plan, and also connect with me. So I put my Twitter, X, LinkedIn, everything is Pierson Marks, and my website. And I also have a podcast myself. I just started. So it's a human podcast. Me and my founding engineer, we talk more tech side. So it's like more in the weeds of the tech. So if that's interesting, check us out. It's on everywhere, but it's a human podcast, not AI.
Beautiful. I love it. What are your plans? What's your philosophy on? Okay, so yeah, a couple of questions. What's your philosophy on audio only podcast versus having avatars and creating these as characters? Are you drawing a line in the sand and saying, no, this is just about audio, or are you diving into, you want to be the next CNN?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's a great question because it's something I'm thinking about all the time. Audio is awesome. Like, we've approached this field as like, what's going to cross the uncanny valley first? Video is awesome, but it's expensive. We don't see that. I don't think that price will come down to a point where you can create a 30-minute podcast like cost effectively for most creators. It's going to price out so many people, and I think that the number of dimensions that can go wrong in video, it's improving significantly. It's awesome. But one small kind of weird thing that happens breaks the reality. And audio, I think, will get to the point where it's not perfect, but honestly pretty close in English. And I think that's really close in the horizon. So we focused primarily on audio. A lot of people just want to listen to stuff. It's less of viewing, but the way I think about video is less of avatars, but more of supplementary content. So when you watch a podcast where sometimes they'll throw up a chart or something where it's not necessary for the podcast, but it could supplement and be helpful. And I think that's something where I would like to get to is you uploaded a PDF document that was really informative. It had charts, it had graphs and images. Could we help to generate programmatically parts of the video that will pop in a chart or pop in a graphic, maybe code, or maybe generate an image that's like Ken Burns style versus avatars that are actually generated. So that avatars, I think it's just kind of a little bit right now. Just maybe at least human avatars unnecessary. Maybe there's fruits that we mentioned earlier in your chat fruit podcast. I don't know.
I'm thinking about a podcast. Like a podcast is, let's say, two characters in a world talking about something that gets recorded and put out into the world. And when it's human people, that makes sense because we can't be talking about something 24 hours a day. But I'm curious about like, is there like a time or a place or a space that we go back to radio stations as we know them to be, where you have two people in a radio studio doing a radio show or whatever, but now we have generative AIs doing it. Like, why just record it and put it out there? Why not have these characters who live forever talking about asteroids on Mars or whatever?
24/7.
24/7. It's such a cool space that actually, so our founding engineer, he's a tech. He's like this person that he's so in depth in the weeds of everything. And he has been able to build things in the amount of like an hour or one day that just blow my mind. It's crazy. And before we hired him, he had this thing that he posted, and it was exactly that. It was a live stream on YouTube where it was audio 24/7 talking about it. It was pulling in a feed. It was streaming the feed through OBS over to YouTube, and it was just having a conversation. And it wasn't the best AI model because it needed to be like long running, but it sounded good. It was just a concept that he just played around with, and totally right. I mean, that would be wild.
It's like, where are the limits, right? Like our physicality, our humanness is what the limits have been. Well, now when you take that away, what are the limits? Like, what are the boundaries? And I'm not saying I have the answers. I just feel like that's a question that's like, I think a lot about with generative AI. Like, if we're not confined to our bodies, we're not confined to what makes us human, what's possible. And
two people talking 24/7. They never need a glass of water. They never need a drink, or
me and Kyle talk about AI all day, 24 hours a day.
Exactly.
Right. And we're limited by like our current reality. And I had this conversation the other day about, AI art and how it's like, once all these AI image models get to the point where they're perfect, what differentiates them? Is it their expressionism or whatever? But is there a point beyond reality? Like, if you can get to reality and like mimic reality completely perfectly, is there a dimension beyond reality that it's hard for us to conceive and think about? But just like, centuries ago when abstract art came out, somebody saw abstract art, they're like, what is that? Like, that's the wildest thing I don't even know how to comprehend that thing. And is there a synonym for that today? Something similar. So I don't know.
I've got a question for you. I asked you this before and you had a good answer for it. And I'm curious if you've evolved on this one or not. And that is, you could absolutely choose to have Jellypod become a media company where you're generating podcasts, putting them in the world, monetizing them. Or you could be the pick and shovel guys that allow everyone else to do that. And I'm curious, how tempting is one or the other? And where are you drawing the line? And how convicted are you of the line you're drawing?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I mean, I think the Yeah, it's difficult to say, because like you could be like the Pixar and develop the technology and all that, right?
You can create a piece of IP, right? Or do you just say, hey, no, we're not going to deal with that. We're just going to be the infrastructure.
Right. I think my bias lies in just that, like what we've been so far is the infrastructure, because I don't know, like I'm not really, I would say, like a magnificent storyteller, and I've never really created some like media. I had a conversation the other day with there was these two old radio execs that created AI podcasts, not using Jellypod, but it was a story, a fictional story, and it was so good. It had sound effects. It was pretty much a 20-episode journey that was like a movie, but it was just audio movie. And we were talking to them, just learning from them, and they had the mastery of their craft, that they really knew like what people wanted, what made like a good story. Maybe in the future, it's like, is that somebody that as a headcount comes in to really help us? Right now, though, I mean, I don't have a line drawn. I think that being the picks and shovel is, at least for the team right now, a little bit more on the fun side. Is it the right decision? Hopefully. I feel like in these spaces, that's what, I don't know. I mean, you still have to be the picks and shovels. It's like, do you extend beyond that to like limit it to yourself?
Yeah. They're very different businesses is what I ask, right? Yeah.
Right. Completely.
Well, this is awesome. Well, Pierson, thank you so much. I mean, I feel like your generosity just in general as a human, but also as a founder, and coming on here and sharing all your wisdom is just awesome. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's so inspiring. So cool. Such a cool toy to play with.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks. All right, Leah. So that was super cool, and it's it's like it ties in. I mean, the thing I put up about stop talking about the tools, start talking about the output. Like, this is a perfect example, right? The output is the podcast series, right? Here's the thing. It's got all these components to it, and it's like they're thinking of some of the stuff, but to Pierson's point, you got to come up with a compelling story in the end, or no one's going to give a shit. It doesn't matter what it is, right? It gets back to humans, right?
That's right. And I really appreciate that you and I had a conversation ahead of the podcast, as we normally did. We brought that conversation to the podcast, and Pierson already put that in his presentation about play and about So we had a theme, and we didn't even know we were doing it. So excellent.
Awesome. All right.
Very inspiring.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks again, Pierson. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out and participating and putting in the good comments. Appreciate it all. See y'all later.
We'll see you at the salon.
See you next time.
Bye.